Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other. And we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Hello, friends. Hello, fellow geekologists. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology, another episode of What's News, where we go over the things that are new in pop culture and geek culture. And boy, the streaming services and the movies are hot right now. There's so much stuff to geek out on, and we're so glad that you chose us to geek out with. And I'm really excited about this episode because we're going to focus in on two big IPs and property and geekdoms that have taken over the pop culture right now. And that is Dune Part 2 and Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action rendition. And so, yeah, we have some friends on here and other hosts that are going to hop on here with us to talk about it. And first, I want to welcome to the stage, to your earbuds, to your live feed, TJ. TJ, how are you doing? What are you geeking out on? Here we are. We got some big stuff out there. It's the spring. It's starting to get warmer outside, and yet we're here together geeking out.
Yeah, I'm good. I've been geeking out on Helldivers 2 recently.
Okay.
Great game, super fun community. This summer just seems to be all about fascism.
Yes, and I think following Super Tuesday. No, we weren't going to go down there just yet. We're going to, we are in a theme of systematic ecology, primary political, and finding like what kind of politics are in our fandoms, and then religion. And we're going to talk about two properties in just a little bit that have a lot of politics, that have a lot of religion, and a lot of things to go deeper on. But I want to welcome somebody else to the stage. And this is someone who's new to systematic ecology, a new voice. You've not heard this voice before, but I've heard it. I've heard this voice for over 19 years because this particular person is in my family tree. Welcome to the show, Ella Jill Rose.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay, I'm glad you're here. We did pull in Hannah, your older sister, to talk about Percy Jackson. And so when we're talking about these two properties of Dune and Avatar: The Last Airbender, I know both are a part of your bandwidth, and Avatar: The Last Airbender is a big part of your rearing and growing up, and even helped babysit you some. And so when we started talking about the live action, Ella was like, I want in on this. So glad that we can bring you in to be a part of what's new. So kind of tradition here is we share what we're geeking out on and perhaps what's new. And you think, Ella, what are you geeking out other than Dune and Avatar: The Last Airbender and going to school at Appalachian State? What are you geeking out on these days? What's new in your life in terms of what you're geeking out on?
Well, it's not necessarily a new show, but I just finished season 2 of Narcos, which I have been binge watching like crazy. And they just killed Pablo Escobar. And so I was watching that, running it back episode after episode for a good couple weeks. So that's what I'm geeking out on right now. I have season 3 to finish, but we'll see where that goes. That's what I'm into.
Yeah, well, we'll say that that is definitely a show on your mom and I's list that we're looking at because it has the Mandalorian in it, right? It has Mando.
Is he?
Yeah, it has Pedro Pascal, who's incredible. And literally in anything that he does. He was in The Last of Us, which I also watched last semester. Man, great stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a good show. Highly recommend.
Yeah, highly recommend. I think he's all over the place. He's man, we love him and all that he does. Last of Us, The Mandalorian. He was even good in that Wonder Woman movie. As much problems we had with Wonder Woman 2, he was still good in it. And the fact that he's going to be Mr. Fantastic in the MCU version of the Fantastic Four, I couldn't be more excited about that casting. And then here, I forgot that he was on Narcos, and so when we're looking for shows to watch, that's up there. Your mom and I just finished watching Beef on Netflix. It won a ton of Emmys. Is something that we were geeking out on, that we were watching episode after episode. And when that wrapped up, we were like, what's next? And so Narcos was on the list. But yeah, Beef is not for the faint of heart, is very much Breaking Bad vibes, in the sense that where you start off with a small choice, like getting into like a road rage incident with somebody, and you think it's just like honking your horn and flipping somebody off, but then the choices you make along the way escalate in a way that derails your entire life and family. So that's what we were watching, but fascinating show, and thought it was really, really, really cool. So so here today we're going to focus on, there's lots of new stuff out there, lots of geeky content, and again, we're super excited that you chose us to go live with, to listen to your earbuds and talk about these things. But we're gonna talk about Dune Part 2 and Avatar: The Last Airbender. So before we get into these and go deeper, I want to get kind of our view or hot take on this at the very beginning, just to not bury the lead. But the challenge was that we're gonna give our 1 to 6 word spoiler-free review of Dune 2 and Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action one. And I'll go first to give you time to think about it. So my 5 or 6 word review of Dune Part 2 is world building, heavy lifting, well done. All right. So that's one of I love that movie. I thought it was great. We'll talk about our histories with it here in a minute, but or like that franchise. But I thought the 2 movies, Part 1 and 2, were masterful and were fantastic. And then Avatar: The Last Airbender live action, I'm just gonna say animation turned to live action is hard. It's hard. It's hard to do. So there I go. Ella, what's your review of Dune 2? I know it's fresh in your mind. You and your sister saw it just a couple of days ago. What's your review of Dune 2?
All right. So I didn't have a lot of background on Dune 2. I didn't read any of the books, but I saw the first one, and I've seen the second one. So I'm going to say cinematic and visual masterpiece. Yeah. Cinematic. And then for Avatar: The Last Airbender, I am going to say worth a watch, but fell flat. Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. I know you have a long history with The Last Airbender, so coming from you, I was ready to hear what you had to say about it. All right, TJ. So, Dune, what's your short review, spoiler-free review?
Absolutely scathing and utterly remarkable.
Oh, wow. Scathing and remarkable. I can't wait to unpack that a little bit. All right. And so, Avatar: The Last Airbender live action.
Not the best.
That's good. Not the best. I love that. TJ's takes on things, man. That's why he's here. That's why he's a founding member of Systematic Geekology. Yeah. So yeah. Let's go a little deeper. So there's your spoiler-free reviews. We're gonna spoil the heck out of these things, talking deeply about it. We're gonna start with Dune first, and TJ, share just briefly like your history with this franchise. Ella, you've already shared that you haven't read the books, but you did see Part 1 and Part 2 kind of separate from the books. How does that relate? How do the movies match up to your experience reading this? Really, when you Google like top sci-fi stories of all time, Dune's at the top, if not the top 3. Frank Herbert wrote this in the 1960s. A lot of things that we experience in sci-fi and in Star Wars, Dune paved the way. Paved a line in the sand for us to for what we experience in sci-fi today. So what's your experience with the franchise and then this movie?
Yeah, so I read Dune the first time when I was in high school, just because I was reading a lot and just picking books off the shelf to go through. And read Dune, did a little research, read Dune Messiah and Children of Dune and God Emperor of Dune. Then did a little more research, found out the other ones aren't really worth reading, so I didn't.
There you go.
But I've loved Dune. After reading them, I went and watched the David Lynch movie, found out about all the other failed adaptations of Dune, found out about all of the things that, took inspiration from Dune, like Star Wars, which took a ton of inspiration from Dune, like an insane amount from Dune. But also Dune took its own inspirations from Foundations, which is an old space opera.
Okay.
Which I haven't checked out yet, which I need to. But,
nice.
Yeah, I've loved Dune. The story's amazing. I even love the Lynch movie because, it's just weird. They do everything Dennis did in part 1 and 2. He did in one movie that is an hour and 40 minutes long.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Ella, I don't even know this. They made Dune into a movie in 1984. David Lynch did a 1984 version of Dune. If you want a good entertaining time with you and your roommates, pull it up. It's really strange. It's really weird. It hops all over the place. It uses some from the book, but then time swaps. And, if you know Sting, the music artist Sting, he's in that movie. Yeah, a young Sting with his shirt off, wearing a Speedo. There you go. But he, it's super weird. But at least attempted to put a book this thick, into one movie, not two movies like Dune does. Yeah, and so it's a one thick book, it's one novel, 3 books inside of it. And then you have to make choices when you're making movies like that. So, yeah, I think, to change something that's so legendary, I mean, Frank didn't invent sci-fi. He was building upon other things. Sci-fi has been around a long time, but definitely there was a culture shift when he wrote Dune and put it out there for the world to read. And then when we translate from books and novels to the big screen, it can be hit or miss because people are attached to those books and stories. But I think with how people are responding to this, the people who love the book, and those who've never read the book but have seen the movie, I think it's gotten lots of positive reviews, and it just goes to show you make a good movie, people are going to go see it in the theater and give it good reviews. Yeah, people may review bomb other things out there they don't like about Star Wars or Marvel or whatever or DC, but yet here's something that's really well done, and people are going to see it, and you can make money if you really take the time to plan out your story. There may be a few gripes that people have with like what was in the book but not translated onto screen, but that happened with Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Where's Tom Bombadil? Well, you don't have time for that. That's a side story. It's a part of the novel and a big part of the story, but maybe not necessarily you want to spend time with on the big screen. But Dune did that, and so it is a masterpiece. It's fantastic, and interesting to hear the different reviews and what people are saying. Those who love the book. Now, there's a ton of politics. There's a ton of religious overtones and talk of Messiah. There's so many themes here. I think they handle it really well. That kind of mirrors what's not only going on in our own culture, in our own religions, in our own society, but kind of age-old, timeless themes as well. What it means just to be human, what it means to be a part of a family, what it means to get your team together, the battle, the struggles of what it means to live together on a shared world, shared universe. All those themes are there, and those timeless themes have done well. Is the reason why people respond to this so well. So Ella, I know you took some notes. You and your sister saw this movie. What were some of the things you talked about on the car on the way home about this movie? What are some notes or themes that stuck out to you?
Well, from like a very like outside perspective of somebody who like wasn't previously a fan, really, I think like the biggest thing to take away from it, like also is just like the cinematography, which I talked about earlier, and the score, which, Hans Zimmer is like iconic for like the scores that he does for like a bunch of different amazing like action movies, but it really like pulls together, I think, the universe in such a unique way that sets it apart from like things like Star Wars 2, especially like bringing in like younger audiences who wouldn't really know what Dune 2 is, with actors like Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, like basically everyone involved in the film. So I think it was like did a really good job of like bringing in a bunch of different like audiences to this new universe that like needs attention because it's a great story, like you said, with a bunch of different themes. I'm also taking a lot of like anthropology classes right now at App State, which is where I go to school. And I couldn't help but also realize like all the themes of like coloniality and how that like also integrates with the themes of like Messiah, but also it's like not just about faith, it's about kind of like violence with, I don't know, like a veil of like faith as like the forefront, and how it's really just about warfare and power and being the emperor. So I think it was like hard sort of to watch him like go from a Messiah figure who like wants to learn about a culture and like then like to go and he's like putting his ring back on and saying like kneel before me. Like it's a lot of like, I don't know, it's it's
Dune
a lot to like take in and to analyze, but I thought it was like really well done. It has so many great themes. So.
Dune is above most things a story that warns against power and blind faith. And what's really funny to me, we are experiencing through the movies the exact same thing that Frank Herbert experienced in the 60s, where Dune Part 1 and 2 are out, and Frank releases Dune and people don't get it, and people think they should be on Paul's side, and that Paul is like the hero of the story. And then Frank Herbert released Dune Messiah to make it very clear, because it wasn't clear enough in the first book, that Paul is not a good person.
Right.
And I can't wait to see what Dennis does with Dune Messiah. Dune Messiah is way harder to adapt than Dune. So...
Yeah, I mean, I just interacting with some friends on social media and stuff, those who we met at Theology Beer Camp and other places, Systematic Ecology, other people that I know, they were like, wow, what a movie. It's so late. I need to go back and watch this again. I need to go see this again because I need to pay more attention to what's going on. I want to watch Part 1 and Part 2 back to back in the theater so that I can see all that's going on there. And I think, the transformation that happens with Paul, from the expectations of being the chosen one or the Duke of this planet and trying to understand your family history, and then you're thrown into this other culture and you see the harmful ways that colonialism can do when you're trying to commodify a planet's natural resource and what it does to a people and a tribe. And then you're propped up as the Messiah, the one that people wrote about. You don't want to have anything part of it. And then you embrace it because you think you're going to do good, even though you're reluctant at first, but then you're like, oh, now it's time to embrace this because of what's going on. I can use it. I mean, we see that in our own culture of like, people use religion and faith as a means by which to obtain and keep power. When, we'll go there right now. Though, like in terms of what Jesus did, he pushed back against like a religion that was oppressing people rather than freeing them. At the heart of the Hebrew religion is a God who liberates rather than traps or keeps under these kind of oppressive rules that keep people in their place, and so Jesus would get back to that original prophetic message and good news of Passover, of liberation, and you see that woven into this story when it comes to it's cool, special effects, the worms are great, the sand's neat, the score music, but underneath the sand, on not just the surface level, you can go deeper with what's happening in the religion. We can see it going on in our day. And those critiques, I'm a Lutheran pastor, so I'm a part of an organized religion, but man, those critiques are real and we have to take that seriously in the heart because, it's a reality we have to face.
Yeah.
So all right. TJ, some of the things that Ella lifted up there in terms of anthropology and family systems and that any other themes there that stood out for you, or scenes in the movie that you were just kind of captivated your attention?
Oh, on naturally the Harkonnen parade and also showcase for Feyd-Rautha.
Yep,
stunning, absolutely incredible. It's insane. Fireworks that look like ink.
Yeah,
they just play into the black and white. It's really insane.
At first, I thought it was smoke. I thought it was smoke. I was like, no, those are fireworks. Those are dull. Black and white and gray fireworks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Harkonnens just kind of look like that anyway when they're not on their planet. They're just black and white, which I think is funny. But not really thematic. Really, it's hard to pick out a scene that stands out because they're all insane. There's not a bad scene. I think Javier Bardem did a great job providing the levity that was kind of needed and will be sorely needed in Dune Messiah.
Right.
I hope he can continue to do that because it gets so much worse. But man, it's just stunning. I want to go see it again already. I only got to see it once so far, which is kind of upsetting.
Yeah.
But I saw it with Josh, so
That's fun.
that's cool. There are the changes that Dennis made. I like a lot more than the changes that David Lynch made, and he agrees. David Lynch does not like his own Dune. He said that a few times. He hates it, which is fair. But I like it. It's silly. So I really am excited to see what he does with the changes that he's made already, because we're spoiling this. In Dune, Paul does not kill Baron Harkonnen. His little sister.
Ella, I don't know if you knew this, Ella, but in the movie, when Paul's the one who kills the guy, is somebody else that does it in the book. So that's a major shift in the story from book to thing. So who originally killed the Baron?
Aaliyah, his little sister. She's a toddler in the book by that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and the toddler kills him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she kills him.
That's crazy.
She has like
child murder
poison finger. Yeah.
I know, that would have been cool to see.
There are a lot of things that you miss out on by only seeing the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't explain that the reason Paul is so powerful is because he was supposed to be a girl, but Jessica loved Leto Atreides so much, and he wanted a son, that she made him a boy instead, because the Bene Gesserit can do that naturally. So he was supposed to be Bene Gesserit and a woman and marry Feyd-Rautha, and they were supposed to have the Kwisatz Haderach together.
Ah, okay.
Very easy to understand series.
Very. That's why in the back of the book they have a glossary of terms and names and 3 appendixes to help break down the religion, the family trees. Yeah, it's like the Bible. It's like the Bible. Yeah, your thing.
If you'd like to support our show, please consider joining our Patreon, where you get live access to our YouTube exclusives, including our comic book catch-up, manga mustard, drinks with Tejas, and our companion series that we do each year with our annual theme. You can also get exclusive merch, including t-shirts, handbags, a coffee mug, and a long sleeve shirt. We also have available bonus extra questions at the end of most of our podcast episodes. You get access to exclusive Discord channels, discounts on our store, access to any future online D&D campaigns. You get to vote on topics for some of our episodes. You can easily access all of the Patreon content right through Spotify now. So super easy. Go to our Spotify page at the top. It's going to say exclusive content for subscribers. If you're a patron, hit that button. You get all of our bonus content right there on Spotify, right with your regular feed. And of course, you get the satisfaction of knowing you helped a podcast in need. Our overhead includes editing software, marketing equipment, recording software, and a lot more. And there's a lot that goes into keeping the lights on here. And we really appreciate all of our patron subscribers for helping the show happen.
Ella, was there a particular scene or moment in the movie that you're like, wow? Yeah, of course, like the black and white planet and all that stuff, and the gladiatorial ring of people fighting and power. I mean, that was just stunning.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
is like the scenes with the black sun. I was like, it was just so cool. I also didn't realize that was like Austin Butler at first. It took me a good 10 minutes to be like, oh, that's him. Because like just the special effects was so good. And I heard that like he didn't actually shave his head for it. Like he had a whole like situation going on. I was like, that's so impressive. Once you know that, like, it's just not
possible to be that bald otherwise.
Well,
yeah,
Will could never. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty close. Yeah, I hate that the villains in this movie were bald, but anyway, I'm walking around and people are like, "Are you trying to steal spice, Will?" Like, no, I this is not by choice. That scene and just that contrast of Atreides having like water and oceans and trees and color, and then this other planet from a black sun, black and white, and warrior race, and they're both vying for this one planet's kind of resources. I think goes a lot there. I mean, there are times when, but you see it just because you're raised in a healthy environment and in a pretty oxygen filled you're still going to be corrupted by power. You still have the temptation to be corrupted by power.
Yeah. In the best, it was like definitely a favorite was when they were in like it was like the pool of like the people who like had like their water taken out of them. What's it called? Could you correct me?
The Well of Life. Is that what they called it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot. But I thought that was like so powerful. And say like not even people like dying of thirst or dehydration would ever think of like drinking this water. And then the scene where like the place is getting basically bombed or something, and like it all comes crashing down. I was like, oh, I think that scene like, also got me. That was a big one, and it wasn't very like. It was cinematic, but like the whole movie is like it's not the most impressive scene, but it was the one that got me the most, I think.
Yeah. And that the element of water and like the precious resource of water, along with the spice, we've talked again, I'm a Lutheran pastor. Baptism is a sacrament, the importance of water. Water equals life. From thirst to when you're looking for life on other planets, what are we looking for? We're looking for water because, water equals life. And so in this particular sacramental version of this universe, they have a pool of life, water of life. That element of water being precious, even within your own body, not just outside your body, but within you, is a sacramental. Don't waste your tears because you don't want to waste your water on things. Super powerful imagery and poetic language around the life-giving nature of water, the universal element of water and why it gives life spiritually, physically, and the two tied together. Pretty amazing. Cool. So we could talk about Dune forever, and we're going to circle back around when we talk about Messiahs here in a minute, but let's go hop over to the next one. Boom. I don't have my sound effect, but I do have live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, the big anticipated live action. Yeah. The cartoon was super popular. People love it. We love it at Systematic Geekology. It's foundational. People will say top animated things of all time created. They made a movie about it and people were disappointed about the movie. You ruined it. We're going to go back to the cartoons. They're like, we're going to make a live action TV show to try to redeem the movie and show that we can make a live action version of this. And they did it. And I think the reviews are kind of mixed. I think IMDb has it slightly higher than other things. I'm not sure what Rotten Tomatoes has, but the fans of the cartoon who grew up with it and who are a big part of their life, they're kind of sitting with this going, scratching their heads. So you said landed flat, Ella. What is it about this show? Shares your history with the show, and then how you bump up against it.
Yeah. So, like most people, my history with the show, I grew up watching it. But mainly it was like in the summer times when me and my sister were like too young to stay at home by ourselves, we would go with my dad, like to the church office, and he would like go into his meetings, and me and Hannah would sit in his like office chair. And we would watch Avatar: The Last Airbender just for like hours and hours and hours. And so it was like one of our absolute like favorite shows growing up. And it remains like to this day, like sometimes if I'm like having an anxious day, like I just put on Avatar and like I don't know, it like sort of is healing for me almost. Very nostalgic. But I think that nothing like can replace that show. Nothing can like level up to it, not like the live actions. I don't think in any way, even if they executed it perfectly, like it would still never be the same. So like you said, it's really hard to go from animated to live action. Like it's, pretty much impossible. But I think the main focus for me is like the bending, I think made it worth the watch too, because that was the most impressive bit for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, the way I think about it, being a Star Wars fan, the original trilogy, there's extended universe, there's comic books, there's TV shows, there's animated things that, for me, the central movies are what makes Star Wars for me. But if there are other things that are made that help people get into that universe, that help open it up a little bit wider, maybe a little deeper, then awesome, great, it's done its job. And so I think if this show, eventually, if people aren't familiar with this and come to the show and they say, there's a cartoon, I'm going to go back to the original source material, what this come from, then that hopefully the good that can come out of it. Even if you didn't jive 100% complete with this show, maybe it draws people to the original source. Similar to One Piece, we have a huge One Piece fan here with TJ and the original manga and the anime and the live action. People liked it, but you can only do so much with that, with a limited amount of space that you can tell the story and what you choose to add to that story. But you can always go back to the beginning. I need to introduce Justin. He's coming off a church meeting. We know those things. Justin, welcome to the show. We're glad that you're here with us. We just talked about Dune. So we're talking about live action, Avatar: The Last Airbender, but we'll circle back around to Dune here in a minute. But real fast, in terms of your Dune, if you're going to give Dune, have you seen Dune?
So I've not seen the second yet, so I can't comment too much. But go ahead.
Well, then you were spoiler free there for a while. Good. Good timing there. That's the Holy Spirit at work. But have you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender live action? I know your kids were into the cartoons. You guys were going through that. Have you guys watched that?
I have watched it with all three of my kids. I have watched it on my own, the cartoons on my own, apart from the kids, and so when the show, the live action came out, unfortunately, I was down with what I think was COVID, so it was just me and my TV binging away. So
okay. What would you say if you had to review the show live action Avatar: Last Airbender in like 1 to 6 words? How would you boil it down? What would you say?
Oh my gosh, 1 to 6 words.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing is 1 word.
Yes, it is. However, I'm going to say, and this may be an unpopular take here, but as faithful as possible. I'm going to go with 4 words.
Oh, as faithful as possible.
As possible.
As possible.
So do you want me to expound on that?
Well, yeah, so your kids are fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of their thoughts on it? What, from their perspective, here we are, older adults. We got a college age person who grew up on this show, going back and watching it. Your kids are experiencing it kind of, in the present time. What were their reactions?
My kids are intermittently conservative. Mm-hmm. And usually that is on shows that they like, they grew up with, and their deep attention to canon as they understand it.
Right.
And so the eldest in particular is inflexible on this stuff. So live action, not going to watch it. It's not the real thing. It's a rip off of it. Not even going to try, because it will shatter some part of his heart that he does not want to be broken. My middle son, who's in 8th grade, has given me one of those, maybe I'll catch it one day, but not today. My youngest, who has been more fresh to it. He watched it, a year or 2 ago. With his brothers, so he was there for it. He is one of these kids who will watch the live action and it offers some critiques, but can still enjoy it
right.
in ways. So he and I have had the most conversation. He did not get through it as quickly as I did, but he watched all of the episodes and enjoyed it, because for him, so all 3 kids, as I imagine all of you will say, that the first movie attempt, first live action attempt, was to say that it was disappointing is not strong enough a word. And so all 3 kids agreed about that. But from the trailers, they felt that it felt like Avatar: Last Airbender.
Okay. And
so my youngest, this was his sense, that even though they blended some things together, they needed to keep it moving for the sake of just the time limits. he had a sense that it felt like the Avatar that he knew. And for that reason, he was willing to watch it and enjoy it for what it was.
I love that, because I think that's the conversation all of fandom and the Geekverse right now with any kind of intellectual property. I think those same reactions and spectrum of how you react to something you love also happens with Lord of the Rings, also happens with Star Wars, also happens with Star Trek, Yeah. And so I think that's where, TJ's a model for this in terms of managing expectations, going in with low expectations or no expectations, not watching the trailer, but like, I'm just going to give you my review on what it is and what it stands for, and still can have an opinion about it. But yeah, how do you manage those expectations, be stewardship of your excitement or what you really want this thing to be? But there's always the original source material, where it lands with you in the season of your life when you discover it. All those things are important in terms of how we react to things. I think that's also a good lesson on how we react to other things in real life, politics or religion, or how Christmas hits on a particular season of your life when you go to church or whatever. Like all those things are a big part of that. So yeah, it is a testimony to how popular this is, that they keep trying to bring this to people to make money, but also to keep this story going and fresh in people, not just a series that's complete and animated version, but keep this in front of people, whether it's Dune or Star Wars or Avatar: The Last Airbender. How do you do that? Ella, I'll say with you, I haven't watched closely every single season and every single episode, but I definitely know it and love its style. But for you who grew up on it and this kind of fell flat for you or felt a little soulless, I kind of liken it to the Disney live action of the popular animated movies. They're doing it, they want to put it in front of people, but it feels a little soulless or not as much as an impact, or something it's missing within it. And this, how does that relate to you? But what are some elements that you liked about it? Like you said, the airbending and the special effects.
Yeah. So for me, I think that one of the main things that they try to do with this version of Avatar is they really tried to condense it. So a lot of the episodes shared an episode, I guess, from the original series, which for me didn't allow a lot of the dynamics to completely develop. And so you lack a lot of why the characters are the way that they are. And I think that's going to catch up to them in the later seasons, because I think Katara learned waterbending too fast and she didn't get angry about it. And I think they also introduced Azula too fast, and she's not really scary to me, way too fast. And so I think that with the way I feel like it's sort of rushed, that they don't have time to really connect with these characters, because everyone already has such a huge amount of love for the characters in the original series that if you're not feeling that connection to these, it's so easy just to write it off. And so I think that's really hard to see them rush along with it, especially with the Aang and Katara stuff, because it's a pretty big plot point in the original series. And I think a big beginning start to that is the secret tunnel episode, and Aang wasn't even a part of that situation in the new adaptation. So I think that I'm interested to see where they go with that and how they're gonna develop their relationship. They might be trying to take it a little bit slower, but I don't know. They're changing a lot. I will say that I think sort of with Star Wars and how the lightsaber stuff is a big part of what people geek out on. For me, a big thing that I was geeking out on was the bending, for sure. Especially in the opening scene. It was really nice. I thought it set it up really great. And sometimes it falls flat, the bending. But I think with Suki and what is it, Roku Island? And Avatar Roku, that gave me chills. So they're it's worth a watch for certain scenes that you get if you're a fan, but I think you can't take it too seriously. You have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I do think they succeeded in the place where M. Night Shyamalan's adaptation failed the hardest, which is the bending. Because man, it just looks so bad in the movie. Atrociously bad. offensively bad. But it looks really good in the live action. Like, for making it look real, they did an amazing job. Pacing, I don't know. I think they should have just taken the risk of getting canceled before they were finished and slowed it down.
I agree.
Yeah.
Man,
Interesting.
it's about growth. A lot of the series is about growth.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that when you truncate a series this much.
Right.
Yeah. And if the series is about, it is about the world they're in, and it's about power and conflict. It's also as much as about friendship as anything, where you find your family, who's your team that you gather yourself around to support yourself through these things, around the mystical and the bending of the different elements that they're a part of. But if you don't sit with those relationships or understand where they're coming from, it can fall flat. And I think interesting analogy, Ella, a way to my heart when it comes to could talk about lightsabers. Like, yeah, you could ruin a Star Wars movie, but if you have 10 minutes of a good lightsaber duel, I'm like, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. I mean, I have problems with how they characterize some of the legacy characters and those kinds of things. But man, you redeem yourself a lot when you have a good lightsaber duel, and then that you kind of bring balance to the Force that way. I think that's an interesting analogy there that I 100% agree with.
I think that for the Avatar's fan base, we would have all taken a episode by episode, just do everything you did in the cartoon in live action. I totally would have watched it. And because I think that, I'm a bigger Avatar fan than my kids are because I've watched it so many times.
Right.
I do. No, I don't. No, book one, I don't quite do this. So this may color some of how I feel about this. But book 2 and 3, I will spot check and watch episodes.
Wow.
I don't quite do that in book 1 because even in the cartoon version, book 1 just kind of took a while. Avatar became Avatar for me really right there at the end when they got to the Northern Water Tribe. Because and I've gone back and watched some of the episodes in book 1. Like book 1 at the very beginning feels so childish to me. And even a little bit goofy. I'm like, Zuko, I'm going to need you to be a little bit more centered here, buddy. And it's like it just took a little while for those characters to really sync up into the characters I kind of think on when I look back at them, because I'm mostly thinking about books 2 and 3 as far as their characters. In the first book, even in the cartoon version, I thought, are they going to fall in love with somebody new every episode? Like what? Y'all really?
Yeah.
I guess this does move as quickly as it does for kids, because I feel like every other week you found a new playground friend. And so they seem to be in the live action trying to microwave some of these relationships like live action always microwaves it, right? It's like, oh, I guess we're a thing now. Oh, I guess we're friends now. It typically moves quickly in live action shows. And one of the things that I think was lovely about the cartoons is that you do get this slower pace that almost never happens in any live action show in the last 5-10 years. I just can't think of a show that does this kind of slow character development in the most recent years.
Yeah. I just real fast, before I forget, like you use the analogy of like microwave it. There are times when we're on the move and I need a microwavable like popcorn or Hot Pocket or whatever you're going to microwave to reheat some food. But if the most memorable food or meals that I've ever had are most likely not microwavable. It's slow cooked, it's cooked with care, it's planned out. There's an event that you're leading up to with family and friends and people you care about. So I think, the difference between Dune and Avatar: The Last Airbender live action is that you have like this understanding of like, we're going to take our time with this, even though Dune's just as, it's set up in books too. There's a lot of content there, and you have to choose what you're going to add or not, where you're going to hurry up, where you're going to time jump. You're making decisions about the storytelling. The economy of storytelling is important. But I think you're right. It's like, what are we going to choose to microwave and heat up fast to get there? Or what are we going to slow cook to make sure it's memorable for that? And I think that's a big part of that. Other things there in terms of this thing before we move on to like the big theme of like Messiah.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to look forward to things, I was excited for it, but I mean, I agree with moderate Whovian. I don't like to be told things. I like to be shown things.
Yeah.
Which, and we're talking about Dune too. So like, it's possible to show things that aren't easy to show. But that's whatever. I don't hate it. It's fine. The thing is, it's easy to watch something like this and not love it because the original exists, and it can't take that away.
Yeah.
They can make a million bad versions of something, but as long as the good version still exists, it's fine.
Yeah. There you go. Well, let's move to like, we could definitely, we'll keep revisiting Dune. We're going to revisit this, and it's a part of our geek culture and things there. Our Systematic Geekology is going to do kind of a live party here in a minute on our YouTube page for folks to come check out about more of our hosts who love The Last Airbender are going to talk about and share their thoughts and ideas and opinions about it. But both of these franchises, Dune and The Last Airbender, really focusing on like a chosen one, a Messiah, one who people have laid their expectations on and expect things from. And sometimes those expectations are met and not met, and or have interpretations of the way they think they should be in the world. And as we think about, here we are in the season of Lent, getting ready to go to Holy Week, Easter's right around the corner in terms of expectations of what Messiahs are and what they aren't, how they use power, how they posture themselves in the world, their sacrifice, what they put on their own shoulders and what people put on them. What are some themes there that think of Dune and The Last Airbender? What comes to mind when we think about those things? Ella, I'll start with you first, then we'll kind of go around the horn.
Well, I think the main thing that makes Avatar and Dune so different with their ideas of Messiah is that one is driven by power, and then one is sort of driven by like duty and like faith to like a people who really Aang doesn't, like, he was born like 100 years ago. He's like placed in this like new era where like he doesn't know anybody. Like his entire civilization has been like wiped out. So it's really selfless, like his motives. Whereas, in Dune, like it's the complete opposite. It's to be emperor, it's to be the ruler. And yeah, I think that's what makes it so scary in Dune, is because you see that shift happen. And you're like, this isn't the character I thought it was. But yeah.
It can be a cautionary tale of like how expectations that are laid upon us and whether we meet those expectations, and then how we use power too. Yeah, I think it can be scary, very scary. And we see that in our own world too. I mean, Aang is so likable in that cartoon, and even in line action, like, man, they're kid actors. They're not perfect actors. They're learning, they're growing as people, whatever, but man, what a likable character. And what is like, you feel the weight of what people expect of him or not, and then the situation they're in with an oppressive empire trying to take things over, and then having to learn quick what it means to be the Avatar, what it means to be the Messiah or the chosen one to do that. And then he goes back into like the communion of saints, of those who have gone before him, to try to learn from them of what it means and what they did and their experience. I think is really analogous in terms of us looking up to the saints in our lives, those that we lift up on festival holy days, or even those a part of our own circles that we look up to and get their wisdom on how to be who they're called to be while still being their own person. TJ, in terms of Messiah figures, and you read Dune Messiah. I didn't. I don't know how this Messiah plays out, but I'll see that in the next movie. But in terms of Aang and Paul, what jumps out for you?
So Paul is a Messiah figure in the loosest sense of the term. Right. He's manufactured by the Bene Gesserit and he's not even the Messiah the Bene Gesserit wanted him to be, because it wasn't supposed to be him. It was supposed to be his daughter, but that's not what happened. So they just have to get over it. Aang is more of a Messiah as a product. He was kind of forced into it just because he happened to be the Avatar and got lucky and didn't die in the Avatar state. I don't know which Avatar back there was smart enough to be like, I'm just going to air a sphere and live in a block of ice for a little while. But they saved the whole series because he almost lost it right off the jump. I don't know. Aang also is generally acting in good faith. There's a couple episodes where he's not after he loses Appa, but that's understandable. He's 12. So, sort of. He's 112, but he's 12. And Paul is not. Paul very much is on a mission for revenge after a certain point, and after drinking the water of life, he is filled with the knowledge of the other Bene Gesserit, and that kind of, as we've seen, just corrupts people, or tends to, and that is why his neonatal little sister is talking to him. Which right. I love that choice. That's an insane choice from Villeneuve.
It is.
She showed up on screen the first time, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's fun. They let her out of her mother before she started talking in the book, but I do like that. It was crazy, and it makes me excited for Dune Messiah. But Paul is not a Messiah,
right?
Dune is kind of the opposite of Avatar in some ways. And that Avatar shows that you can have faith in your Messiah, and Dune does not.
I like that. It was really kind of a functionality thing of us putting these two side by side and doing them together, but putting them side by side is an interesting contrast in terms of the worlds and what it means to be Messiah or not, or power, your friendship groups, your circles, your communities who make you or break you, like that. I love that we're holding these two up together. And the word you used there, TJ, manufactured. Where's the natural progression evolution process of becoming who we're called to be versus being manufactured by those who want to control you or have expectations for you, and being put in a system that's going to make you who they want you to be? That's interesting, because that word manufactured is a big part of the Dune universe. And then here we have Avatar. I geek out hard that Aang was trapped in a block of ice for 100 years, similar to Captain America. I'm like, ooh, I get that reference. There's a Captain America that happened too. Fish out of water. I can't imagine me being like suspended in some kind of time capsule or like sleep state for 100 years and then waking back up and try to live in the world 100 years in the future, and me still being me and being used to whatever, like that thought experiment is like, wow, what who would I be? What would the world look like? Pretty amazing. Justin, you're navigating Lent right now with your community of faith, and Holy Week's right around the corner. In terms of thinking about Messiahs with Aang, and then who we understand Jesus to be as Messiah, what kind of pops up for you?
So Aang represents, for me, both an image of the Messiah and an image of the church. So Aang is living in a extended Gethsemane moment for much of this series. Like, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me.
Yeah.
And so he is, in this way, he feels the duty, but he's also reluctant. And again, it's this extended Gethsemane moment. The difference is his friends keep watch with him faithfully. He never has to go to friends and say, why are you sleeping? They are not sleeping on him at all.
Wow.
In this. And so then the way that he represents the church for me is that he is part of a community. And so he's taking up his cross and following with a community that helps make his life possible.
Nice.
And so that's, I love that. So he's both Messiah and kind of representative of who people that follow the Messiah are supposed to be. It's no longer a singular individual. It's actually a community moving forward. And, Aang just wouldn't be who he is without that community. And I think that's really different because, in the way that we look at most messiahs, they are who they are, and others help along the way, but they are who they are.
Yeah.
Aang is who he is because of his friends, both his friends 100 years ago and his friends today.
And maybe that's some of the disappointment, is that not that the microwaving or the rushing through the building of the friendship lands flat, or perhaps doesn't land well with fans because they appreciate that friendship and bond group so much. And talking about Messiah and the church, what is the church if not the body of Christ in the world? So we are the body of Christ. We embody who the Messiah is. The lights just went on me in my office again. I'm being still. I think that's pretty important to think about too. It's not just Messiah as an individual, but also as a community, the body together, embodying who the Messiah is. And man, Lent is that time to really reflect on what kind of Messiah are we following, or want, or long for, or hunger for? Is it one who's like really chasing a crown of gold, or one who's willing to embrace a crown of thorns for his loved ones? And I think that's what this season is all about. And man, I love it that here in pop culture, here in geek culture, these two movies, these big franchise beasts help hold up a mirror or share some of those truths with us in our own stories and what we're following. I love it, man. I could talk all day. We're getting close to the hour. We all have stuff to do today, but a final question. Sometimes we do a final question on Patreon, but we're just going to do it. We're going to do it now here live for all of you, but we want you to be a part of Patreon, Discord, social media, engage with us. Let us know who you are and what's going on. Ooh, what do we got here? Just announce. Okay. This breaking news.
Okay.
Breaking news coming at you, everybody. We have breaking news from the news. Christian has just announced 4 hours ago, Avatar: The Last Airbender live action has been renewed for season 2 to complete the story. So the original series is 3 seasons. This one's going to be 2. So again, rush. Hopefully they can take their time to hear some things going on, but have it renewed is good. We'll be there. All right. So here's our question. To wrap up with. If you could bend any element, any of the 4 elements, you can't be Avatar, you can't be all 4. If you had to just pick one, what would you pick? Ella probably knows. But let's go with TJ, and then we'll go Justin, and then Ella, and then I will reveal mine. TJ, one element. Which one are you choosing?
Spice.
Oh, he pulled from the day. You're going to control spice. You're going to be on the sand, riding the back of a sandworm, and blue eyes. TJ has like deep blue eyes, reading my mind, all that stuff. I'm like, all right, TJ.
I do. Moderate Hoovian said Earth. I disagree. Wrong answer. Air.
You're an air guy.
It's
All right.
always been air.
Always been air. I love it. Good choice. Justin, how about you?
Part of me thinks it'd be fun to ask others like what elements they think we would bend. Like my kids are always, they're always trying to slither in me or something like that. So they probably say, "You're a firebender, Dad." No, not a firebender.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to be mystical and air bending, but I don't know. I think, and part of me wants to be fun and say metal bending. I want to be like Toph is like a favorite.
Yeah.
But I am probably a waterbender.
Okay. And again, depending on the day and the season of our life, we may choose different. Tomorrow may choose different than that. And that's okay. There are days when our moods, where I may feel like fire at one point, but it may move, but then you may stick to the good one. I do like asking friends and community of faith, like, what superpower would you have if you could pick just one, and kind of psychoanalyze why they're choosing it. But for this instance, I like this kind of, all right, Ella, I don't know what you're going to choose. I don't know what you would choose. So whatever you say is going to be surprising. Let's see. I know you like Toph, but like, what would you say?
I mean, it's actually really hard to choose. So I don't know. I always really liked, not that I would do this, but I always thought that like blood bending was really cool too, with like water bending.
Okay.
And that was such a cool like addition to the original show.
Yeah.
But maybe waterbending because you can like freeze it and like you can kind of like shift it a bit. But yeah, I saw like this one thing like on social media a while back, and it's like you're like what like would you bend based on like what your hand looks like, and they had like all these different like shapes of hands and like whether you're a waterbender or an airbender or different things. I don't remember what mine was, but I would probably do waterbending also.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's personality tests out there about like, extrovert, introvert, Enneagram, what house of in Harry Potter would you live in? But then there's airbender.
I would like to clarify, Christian said that the series has been renewed for 2 more seasons.
Oh, okay. 2 more seasons. There you go. All right.
Hopefully they'll be able to like take their time.
Yeah.
Nice. Good. Ella, what do you think I'm going to choose with airbending? What do you think? What do you think?
Definitely waterbending for surfing. So
that's right. You called it. Yes, waterbending. If I could control water, I would be surfing a lot, and then they would hire me for the World Surf League to create waves every single time. When surfing's in the Olympics, they'd be like, "Will, come make sure we have waves." Like I would be, waterbender, and the element of like how much water is a part, like we learned in Dune, in our own bodies, around our world. That kind of, if you're like a Magneto, it can control metal, but with water, that's stuff.
I'm a little concerned here because both members of this family are a little bit like, well, you can control the water in people's bodies. There's a little edgy blood bending going on here. Y'all would tip toward the dark side. I'm cool with that. You can be all Luke Skywalker with it, but please.
There's a dark side. There's bladder bending. You can make people have to pee all the time if you want them to leave your presence.
Bladder bending. That's funny. You can pitch that.
Yeah. Super fun. Yeah, there's more to say about these franchises, and we will say more about these franchises in the future. We're glad that you are a part of and listening to and stuck to the very end of our episode of Systematic Ecology. Again, follow us, interact with us. We can't wait to get a message from you to know what your take is on these franchises and what's going on. And I hope that wherever you walk, wherever you go, may you have someone with you that walks out of rhythm with you so that you're not eaten by a large sandworm. And remember, friends, share the faith, share the geek.
Check out our merch online at the SG Shop. There you can find clothing such as hat, extra soft t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, and more things like glassware, mugs, bags, and posters. My favorite shirt design is the one that says all reading counts. So make sure you check out the store and find your new favorite merch.
Hey guys, Christian here to talk to you about the ANT Network. That is the Amazon Ministries Podcasting Network. That's what we do for all of us here together. You can follow the whole network in a single feed on Spotify at Amazon Ministries Podcast or on the network page on Apple Podcasts to just see what we're all doing. And what are we doing? Well, we have plenty of things here. We've got the homily. You love Pastor Will. You want to hear Pastor Will preach. You hear the man doing a homily there. It's amazing. The man does spectacular work for Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Then we have the Whole Church podcast. If you want to hear Joshua and TJ talk to different people from around the church who have very different views on how things should go, check it out there. You want to go to My Seminary Life? You want to get some more Brandon Knight in your life? Who doesn't want more of that? Go there, hear about the man, discuss his time at seminary, which is what he used to do. Now he's on other topics, and just head out there for what the rest of the man can do. Hear a lot of good stuff that way. Now you can head over to Let Nothing Move You. That's my podcast where I go through the Bible chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I started with Luke, then I went to Romans. Now I'm in Genesis, and I'm moving on from there. It's a good time if you want to hear how I view the Bible, how things should go there. You can do that. You can go to Dummy for Theology, where you can hear Joshua Noel discuss the various theological topics that he has there in an attempt to show every side of the big discussions leaving you with more questions and answers. If that infuriates you like me, but you still want to listen, head out that way. You can go to the Bible After Hours. We have the foul-mouthed preacher there, and he's going to deliver things that not ready for every ear to hear, but sometimes you need someone to be a little filthy out there just to give a more progressive view of the church, to challenge the status quo of what is happening here. Do you agree with him? Do you not like him? How are you going to know if you don't listen to him? And finally, we have save best for last, the Clydes. Taylor and Elizabeth Clyde. You need some more Pangalangin in your life, like all of us do, then head out there, see what's going on in their own life, in their own ministry, so you can hear the devotions and everything going on in their lives. Once again, it's the Anna's Out Ministries Podcasting Network, AMP, and we love you guys. See you next time.